talk of the day. This is going to be by our own Shri Pranshu Saxena ji, who always comes up with game-changing topics. Who would have expected that a Bhil tribal story will have a concentration on Parikshit? Parikshit is actually generally an intellectual topic. General population may or may not talk about Parikshit. So people generally don't expect that there is a topic on Parikshit in tribal versions. But he is coming up with such an interesting topic. Always, every time he comes up with such wonderful topics. Uh, Pranshu Saxena ji is an avid reader of history and ancient texts. He inherited love for writing and reading along with diabetes from his forebears. The uh, Madhumeha and Madhumeha stuck with him through his education on three continents. He enjoys delving into details of stories to find hidden truths which his young students at Vidyalaya enjoy. His stories are published in Indica anthologies, Unsung Valor, Fight of Deities, Shared Roots, Adrishya, and on Real Mahabharata of Vedavyasa. His writings on epics and history are available on various portals. Pranshu resides in New Jersey, where he shares his life with wife, daughter, father-in-law, and a lifelong collection of books. Amazing, Pranshuji. As always, please go ahead and enlighten us.
Thank you, Indika, for giving me this opportunity to discuss R.C. Temple's Legends of Punjab, uh, focusing on Mahabharata and especially on the tribal and the what we now call scheduled caste variations. The talk will obviously focus on the two subaltern characters we already discussed, Vasuki, the great leader of the Nagas, and Parikshit, the son of the great martyr Abhimanyu, and the father of the Yajman of the Mahabharata, the Janamajay. So, as you can see from the screen, I have divided the topic into who was R.C. Temple, how he captured the folklore of the area in discussion, and I have two characters which are not really part of Mahabharata. They come in the Adi Parv. Vasuki actually comes as a hanger-on throughout. He appears in a shlok here and there without being a major character in any of the stories. But in the legends collected by R.C. Temple, especially from the subaltern groups, you could say the people outside the mainstream of the society, they both actually their stories come through very much through a character which is very interesting, the daughter of Vasuki, Navaldevi. And if time permitting, I will dwell a little bit on Shishupal and the Banasur stories, which are also part of the same collection by R.C. Temple. So, the books I have used is the 3-volume collection by R.C. Temple. He had envisaged a 6-volume collection. He had collected more than 1,200 stories and had written down 118 of them. He could only publish around 59 of those in the 3 big volumes. He had they constitute more than 1,400 pages of text, and he was never able to complete it. He also participated and created a series of more such Indian traditional folklore stories like the Wide Awake stories, the Deccan Days of Yore, the Bengal folklore stories, and so on. Later on, when he was a part of the conquest of Burma in 1885, he wrote the story of the 37 Nats. as well as later on, he edited Fallon's work on the devil worship of Tuluvas, which has an interesting side effect we will talk about. So it all started actually, the genesis of this talk started long time back. My mother was invited to an Amarchit Katha, this is many decades back, to Amarchit Katha quiz contest, and I went along with her to give her company. I was very little at that time. My aunt, God bless her, used to spend most of her salary as a teacher on buying me Amarchit Katha. And there it was, in that quiz contest, I realized that if you basically participate, and I was very little, each round you survive, you get one free Amarchit Katha. And that was the motivation behind it. I eventually managed to win the tournament, that quiz contest, and uh, the only thing I remember, and I was very little at that time, the only thing I remember was that in the final round, there was a question on Anguli Mal, and which basically was very simple. What did Anguli Mal say what did Buddha answer back to Anguli Mal when he demanded his fingers? My honorable opponent actually went into a big discourse on philosophy of Buddha and non-violence and all that. And then my turn came and I just simply answered, take the fingers, which was the right answer. And this is where, very interestingly, the power of Amarchit Katha comes across, because it was very nicely telling us the stories of our past in a very easy to understand manner. And it was one of the big educational sources, I think, at that time. In the time when the written word was, the modern generation will not understand how the lack of written word afflicted the children in those days. I used to read jar labels, everything, I can still make a mean Jalzira, because I would read everything in the house after, exhausting everything was there to read. And one of the things which Amarchit Katha also had, other than the stories, was there used to be an editorial, and Parikshit had an editorial by Uncle Pai, Dr. Anand Pai, which said that after the Mahabharata war, the successors of Dhritarashtra were probably in a very weak position, so that there was an invasion from the west, starting from Gandhar and then defeat of Parikshit. And so this was a very interesting idea. Was this the first ever foreign invasion of India from abroad, from the west? And this was where I started searching more about Parikshit and Vasuki outside the traditional areas. And that's where, after a couple of decades, I ran into the works of R.C. Temple. Um, R.C. Temple was a rarity among the British officials. There used to be a story, Kindwanti, about the British, that they thought that if 3 generations of the British officers served in India, they will become Indian. Khoon badal jayega. So literally, as they would say. So example being Douglas Jardine, his 2 generations had served in India. So he was, as a 9-year-old, sent off to England, never to return to India and never to meet his parents till much later when he had grown up. And he went on to captain England in Test cricket. And India's first Test match was with Douglas Jardine as the English captain. If he had stayed back in India, his biographer has written that he might have been the captain of India for the first Test match. So, that's how the story changes. R.C. Temple was a 4th-generation Britisher born in India. His great-grandfather was born in India, his grandfather, his father, and himself, and then later his son also. So he was sort of in touch with the folklore of the region of where he was. One of the interesting stories which he basically tells is that there was a Kuka revolt. Kuka revolt was a revolt by the Sikhs in Punjab after the conquest of Punjab by the British Empire and annexation of Punjab into the British Empire. And Mahendra Singh Koka was one of the people arrested by his father. And so he basically managed to spend some time with him and get to learn some stories of India from, one of the first rebels of, against the British Empire. And that got him interested into the folklore. And that's what we will talk about. And another part of this is that he had no commentary. He presented what he gathered about the folklore as is, without commentary, without judgment, which is why it is very interesting to read his stuff, because it is as if we are hearing from the people who were there, the Kathawachaks, as is. Uh, and one of the most interesting aspects is that he was the one who edited Fallon's the Devils of Tuluva, and where he meant devils was that in southern India, because of how the imagery was done, they would look like devils, but he called them sadhus in his explanation. And one of the first, and so he was the first one who introduced Panjurli, the Kshetra Deva, to the English-speaking world, and well, by extension, to the rest of India. 125 years later, we have the great movie, excellent movie called Kantara, which basically is about Panjurli. I'm not saying that Kantara was based on his story. It's just that he introduced Panjurli to the English-speaking world as the first point. So before I talk about his work, he collected folklore, he collected legends. And folklore, as he stated, is the basic history of people. The story of the people at its most basic level, base level, protected, nurtured for even thousands of years. It is evidence in itself of the life of that culture, of the people themselves. I would translate it, this is my commentary, it's literally the Shruti, how temple was used to collect the folklore. So as he said that, folklore is the basic history of people, the story of people at its most base level, protected, nurtured for even thousands of years. It is in evidence of the people themselves. There's no science around it, and that's why he actually wrote a monograph called The Science of the Folklore. He called it the literal Shruti of the people. And to quote Tilak, who was a philosopher, commentator on Gita through Gita Rahasya, Tilak had once said that the moderates, and he's talking about his politics, moderates of today were the extremists of yesterday, just like the extremists of today will be the moderates of yesterday. And that's what I would ascribe to, that the rishis of today were the Kathawachaks, the storytellers of yesterday. Just like the storytellers, the Kathawachaks, the original creators of today will be the rishis of tomorrow. Vaishampayan told Mahabharata the question and answer session to Janamajay. The storytellers, the commentators like Alf Hiltebeitel and Vivek Debroy will be the rishis for the next generation. And that was also the ethos behind the work of Temple, which stretched from Kashmir to Agra, Meerut, right down to Gujarat, Baluchistan, Sindh, Afghanistan. And he collected the information, he collected stories from all over this place. He collected from from what he called the 7 types of storytellers. They were the storytellers who were the Bardai, who were sitting in the palaces and telling the stories of great national legends, tales of valor, and genealogies. Sootvandi jano ke mukh se suni humne Mahabharata, the high charans. He listened to the Kathawachaks at the temples levels, the wandering mendicants, the wandering yogis, as he called them, at the fairs and festivals, the sadhus, the professional pilgrims. They had given up Maya, they had given up life as such, and they would just travel from each teeth to another teeth, and they know the stories of those places, and their stories of the festivals at national level, at local level. And of course, there were also the professional ballad singers, the Mirasis. He looked down a little down upon those. They are still looked down upon by us today also. They would sing for hire. They would have dancing girls. They will sing any kinds of songs, from the finest national legends to the filthiest dirt imaginable, as is now the modern Bollywood. And so these were what he described as the Bardai, the Charan, the Bhat, the Mirashis, the Bharan, Kathavachaks, and the wandering Jogi and Fakir. Another person, an interesting, totally different being he added to this list, which he identified, was the uneducated, illiterate person who would do the kathas and the stories at the feasts and the festivals and the rituals of the lowest caste, the scavengers, in the mozas far away from the village centers. People not allowed to be seen in the daytime in those days. Those singers would go through the entire night singing away. They may or may not be educated. They may have heard the stories from pilgrims, the sadhus, from even the high charans, and their their innate knowledge, their innate skill, and memorizing these things would come out. They may not be allowed to have education or something, but you cannot put the person's own desire to share stories down. And some of these people, he writes, would go through thousands of lines of litany through the night, and they will not be able to replicate it next day when asked for details, because he believed that when the storyteller is telling the story, he is goes into a trance, the power of mind. They would no longer be in the now, they would be timeless, and they would not only be transporting themselves but the entire audience. And this is not only true for the people he met at the lowest mozas, but to the highest. The storyteller has the power to transport the audience to time and place, to be with the five brothers and their wife in the forest, to be the warriors in the moments of their triumph and despair, to be with the Vanar Sena as they're building the bridge, with Ala and Udal as they take Bela from the Chauhans, or with Prithvi Raj as he takes Suyukta from Jechan. These bards take the listeners to the far off realms and times and come back. And that is the power of Kathavachaks. He recruited a series of munshis, and they would write down, they will be writing as the bards would be telling the stories. Then they will discuss among each other and then come up with some words. And they encountered so many obsolete words from when they were capturing these stories from these bards, because the language was probably used long time back, and they are just learning from rote. And when they ask the Kathavachak, what do these words? No, even the Kathavachaks were not aware of it, because they may just be, learning it by the rote, or they had traveled in their place and mind to that realm of time itself when such language was being used. And this is a really a lost art form which we will never get back, the Kathavachaks. And there were some singers he found at some of these isolated mountain villages, which were amazing. They may have heard the stories from their ancestors or from another Kathavachak or something. They had that skill, that pratibha, without education, that natural talent was shining through. And they would have these totally localized stories, totally localized legends, totally localized words. Their stories would be a joy to a philologist, like discovering a new language. And it will be played to the folklore collective, because the words not even known are being used, and there are variations, wide variations in the legends, and he collected them. Example, like Jogsen's story, the story of Raja Jogsen. It's in he collected four different variations: Jamal and Patta, who fought in Chittor. These are real life characters, historical characters, and they became legendary by the time he was collecting them. And some of their stories are so fantastic, and some of them are so human, to the very point that K.S. Shastri, while writing the Kumkonam edition, said, that there should be three meanings for each Mahabharata shlok: Uparicharya, transcendental; Astikadi, as is; and Sanskarik slash dharmic. And same way he found these legends were preserved in smallest mausas to the greatest courts in a different manner altogether. And so one such story is the story of Vasuki and Parikshit. We come back to our main characters. So in the kingdom of Jind, in the small princely state of Jind, they were very much aware that they were the kingdom which had Kurukshetra. They were doing, they were finding temples, they were opening temples, they were rediscovering temples, and there they basically identified Safidon. It's a city in Jind as the city established by the Pandavas, the Asandivat, the victory camp of the Pandavas. Jind itself is Jayantipuri, the temple to the goddess Jayanti created by the Pandavas after the victory. So, and there the story basically goes is that, and Safidon itself, the name is fur is not there in Indian word. It's per. It's a Sarp Daman, Sarp Dehen, which became Safidon, the modern city. So this was the place where the Sarp Satra actually took place. And the story goes that there were three huge wells, deep wells in that area. One was full of Amrit, the second was full of snakes, and the third was filled with locusts. There are stories about why these happened, but I'm going to focus on Parikshit and Vasuki. So so Raja Vasuki, his clan, a snake in his clan, he evidently bit a cow, and the cows cursed Vasuki to get leprosy. As the leader of the clan, he gets the blame for all the work, anything his people, his clan does. So he gets leprosy and he cannot be cured of it. The only cure was to get out and send somebody to fetch Amrit from the well of the Pandavas. Now, Vasuki had got into a fight here. Now, here we're not very clear who the Pandav is. In Mahabharata, we know that Vasuki's sister was married to Arjun. Uh, some weeks back, Pandav Leela in Garhwal, in another symposium by Indica, I talked about the story of the rhinoceros and another daughter of Vasuki marrying Arjun, and the whole series of tales of the rhinoceros, which basically came out of it. So Naval Day is this great heroine who decides to go and fetch the water from the well of Amrit for her father. And she goes there. She's able to escape the guards and everything. She's very beautiful. She's very good looking. And when she goes out there, even Indra and the Devas come out and watch her as she goes about her business. She was and when she reaches there, she is able to move the stone from the top of the Amrit, and the stone is about 5 tons weight. It's 150 mana in the story, as it's said. But with her power, she is able to move that. And when she moves it, she uses the rope to go down. Now, this is very interesting here because the story was collected in Jind in 1880s. Uh, the god of the well, the guardian of the well, is called Khwaja Kisar, because a Muslim guy may have been telling the story, or so, and that is Saint Elias from the uh, from the from the from the stories of the early fathers in the Christian things. Again, Saint Elias is a pastiche for an original Indian Hindu Sanatani god, and most likely it is Vavast Manu from the descriptions of this, or one of the Saptarishis. And so they are protecting. And again, there's a story of Ekaduet Trit. Trit is in the well, and Trit is the god, is basically managed to extricate himself in the wells, and Trit is in the Pandav court. So this is and Trit is in Vedas also. So it could be Trith also, who basically goes across the world as Saint Elias and Khwaja Kisar. So anyway, he immediately informs the Pandavas that, somebody is taking the water, and the Pandav, Arjun most likely, but Pandav, we are not told exactly. The stories say, just say Pandav. They come in there and they tell the lady that you are supposed to marry me, and you are now stealing water. You can take the water. That's not a problem. You're taking the water to Vasuki to cure him for leprosy. Go ahead and do that. But you are supposed to marry me. Your father has actually broken the compact. And most of the stories are like this. Somewhere or the other, one person or the other breaks some sort of a marriage contract, or does something which hurts the other side. And that's how the stories always begin. So she promises that she will come back, and he allows her to go away. She comes back, and then she basically pours the water on her father and cures her of leprosy. But before doing that, she ties a thread, a small, thread around Vasuki's thumb. So the whole body of Vasuki gets cured of leprosy except for that thumb. And she says to her father, I am going to go back to get some more water to fix your thumb. And Vasuki, though he is not very willing to let her go and risk everything again to getting caught, allows her to go. And she comes back and she meets the Pandav, and they perform the marriage, and she becomes the queen of Pandavas. And that's why the story goes that the people in Punjab still have leprosy because Vasuki's thumb never got cured. Now, this is a story told by Bardais, told by the bards at the court of Raja Jind. This story is also told in the scavenger village of Bibiyal near Ambala. And the story goes like this. Vasuki is sleeping very nicely. He is basically uh, enjoying a very nice sleep and everything. His wife Padmavati, Padam Devi, is fanning. Other Nagins are nearby, and he is having a very nice sleep. And then he has a dream. In the dream, he visualizes and sees a black buck, and in his dream, he is hunting because he loves hunting. And he suddenly wakes up with a start, and he says, I know where this black buck is. And he calls for his horse. He puts his left foot in the stirrup, always the right thing to do, the right custom to do. Put the left foot first in the stirrup. Again, we are told that the stirrups are there in that day and age, in that story. And he basically takes his horse, which flies like wind, and he goes to this area outside Safedon, Asandivat. And there he finds the black buck and he hunts them. And he really likes that place, and he comes every day to hunt. And he has been doing it for many days. One day, basically, and again, he only hunts black bucks. He doesn't hit. He doesn't hunt any does or anything. So one day he decides to, when he's after he has hunted the black buck, he carves out the liver, the kaleji, and he takes out his flint and he's cooking. And when he's cooking, the smoke basically goes in, and Raja Parikshit has been watching. He had been watching for several days. He had been allowing Vasuki to hunt for a few days, but finally this day he basically attacks. He comes out there, he captures Vasuki, arrests him, and says that I've been noticing this, that you've been doing this for a long time. You know that the deer here are basically under the protection of Yudhishthir. And this is again a story we see in Vanapar in Mahabharata, the Mragaswapna. So, and you have to pay for it. You are no longer allowed to hunt, and you have to pay for what you have done. So, how do you pay? You give me your daughter as bride. Vasuki says, I don't have a daughter. What are you talking about? He says, no, I know you have a daughter, and I'm going to marry her. So please go back. And he asks Vasuki to swear on Krishna for 3 times. He takes the oath in the name of Krishna 3 times. He even writes it down that I am going to marry my daughter to you. Dola tere ghari bhijwaunga. And so again, we are told about that he takes out the kalam, the vat, and the paper, and he writes it down, and he gives it in writing to Parikshit, and Parikshit is very happy. He comes back home, he calls Begu Nai and says, "Call my all brothers and cousins and everybody." And so the 9 families of the Pandavas, the Navgraha, they are called. They assemble and they're very happy. They're going to be married in the family. Now Vasuki comes back and he says, "No, I'm not. He, I have. He is. He has a grudge against the Pandavas. He says, I'm not going to send my daughter to marry them." He calls the 9 Nagas. He calls his clans together and says, "We are not going to do this. But before that, we know that he is a very intelligent fellow, Parikshit. He's going to kidnap. He's a warrior. He's a Kshatriya. He'll come and he'll kidnap the princess." So they dig a big well, and in the well they put in supplies for 12 years, and they send in the maids, the servants, whatever the princess needs, and they cover the well with this huge stone of, again, 125 man, 5 tons. This, like, 125 is a very important number, which comes again and again in a lot of these stories. And so then he decides, how I have done this part, but I have sworn 3 times in name of Krishna, and violating the oath will bring some problem with it. Some sutak will come. So he basically calls a rishi, and this is very interesting. This rishi's name is Sanjay. Um, Again, it could be any Sanjay, but this is Mahabharata we're talking about. So most likely this is Sanjay of the Mahabharata. And he calls Rishi Sanjay. And Rishi Sanjay says, I have to start looking at this. I have to read all the Vedas. I have to read all the Purans. I have to figure out what you have done and how you can get out of that oath. So get me certain measure of yak's milk. And there's something, yaks are not easily available there in Haima. So he asks his 2 sons, Sutak and Patak. Sutak and Patak are Punjabi words, again meaning some, about, portents and rituals and everything. And he sends Sutak and Patak. And Sutak and Patak are funny characters here. They go around and they find that there are 5 yaks. And there are 5 girls who are these 5 yaks, and they basically drink the milk from these 5 yaks. So they steal the milk from the yaks at night, and they come back and give it to Rishi Sanjay. And Rishi Sanjay says, "Hey, what are you done? These are my girls and my yaks. You have stolen the milk from us. I'm not going to help you guys. And I'm going to curse you that you basically get all, your Vasuki gets all the worst curse possible." And so Vasuki gets up. His ego is hurt again. Sanjay has basically, you know, defying him. And he goes and he bites and he kills the yaks. So he basically steps on step. And now, when he has done that, he is cursed by Sanjay to have leprosy. So now you see the story which the bard actually tells us in Jind is just that story that, Vasuki gets the curse. But here we have this full expanded story from that from the this Valmik bards, 2 Valmik bards who were telling it to Temple, the extended story with extra characters and everything. Anyway, now Vasuki immediately realizes, I have got leprosy. He puts himself out of Chaukhandi. Chaukhandi is what they call the border of a town or a village, and he parks himself outside Chaukhandi so that nobody else gets infected. And this is again a very interesting idea which people are been telling each other. They are informing through stories about diseases and how to control diseases, the spread of diseases. And Vasuki is there, but the rest of the family is very unhappy, and they cry. The mothers are crying. And so Navaldevi, she is hidden in that well, and she hears her mother's cry. And she says, I have to get out. And she and Sandal Dai, her nurse. They basically use their powers and they open that 125 mon stone and they move it out, and she comes out and she finds what has happened, and she says, how do we solve it? They find another rishi. So there are all these sadhus and rishis available everywhere to give you solutions and answers. And he says there is a well with water in Asandivat, under the control of Raja Parikshit. And if you bring that water from that well, you are going to basically save your father. Now, she goes in there. Everybody in the family says no, but she goes in there. She has a lot of powers, and again, there's a lot of stories on how she says, I can become a huge nag, and Vasuki says, no, that's not a problem. That's Parikshit is a great warrior. He's going to cut you to pieces. I'm going to become a very small um, uh, snake, and like a needle go through the sand. And he says he can see, his eyesight is so good that he can see through the sand and sift you and pick you up like a needle and put it on his belt. He is the disciple of Dhanvantari, the Vadya. So there's a lot of this various uh, powers Navaldi describes about herself, and Vasuki keeps on basically canceling those stories, but eventually he allows her to go. She goes in, she dresses herself very nicely, she goes there, and she finally manages to somehow sneak in. I've ignored the story. There's a part of it, like when she's going, first, the king of Indraprasth or Indra comes. So that's where we're not very clear what the bard is telling, who comes, and he says, oh, you're like my father, allow me to do this deed. And he does that. Then she meets sun and moon, and they say, you are like my brothers. You are sons of Kashyap, and I'm daughter of Vasuki, son of Shankhnag. He's one of the Nagas in Mahabharata. So you are like my brothers, and so they help her also. So then there's a black buck which comes and he says, your father has killed a lot of my brothers. And now she becomes a little angry, and in her anger she looks at the black buck with anger, and he dies. And now she is suddenly overwhelmed with grief. She didn't mean to kill him. So she cuts her finger, puts a drop of blood in her mouth, and the black buck comes back to life. And she continues on her journey there. And when finally reaches the well, she sees the guardian of the well here. And she basically first prays to the guardian of the well that, can I take the water? And the guardian said, okay, you can take the water. A lot of birds and beasts are now, also looking at her, because her character is like that everybody wants to follow her. So she takes the first bucket of water from that well, and she then puts it on the statue of the guardian of the well. And he is overwhelmed. He said, everybody comes and they want to do something. They come and take these miraculous waters, but nobody worships me. You're the first one who has done it. So, he blesses her. Then she gives the water to some birds and beasts which are there. And then as she was taking the third, bucket of water for her father, that's when Parikshit comes and says, look, you were supposed to marry me. Your father has gone back on his word. He's reneged his promise. What do you say about it? I take the water if you want. But he has still broken that oath. So she says, I'm going to take the oath again in the name of Krishna. I'm going to take it 3 times. And she also writes and give it to it. And Parikshit let him go. Now there's the other, and there is this falcon. Yeah, the falcon is the guardian of the well. With the guardian of the well, there's a falcon. And the falcon alerts Parikshit. In a lot of the stories, we have always this animal which is there, who can speak and who has a role to play. So the falcon basically had helped Parikshit, but Parikshit allows her, and the falcon says, "What are you, fellow? The father said, cheated you, and now you're letting the daughter go. And he goes that I want to marry her. And you know what? You have to trust who you're going to marry, your spouse. And I'm going to trust her. And this, I may make this mistake 100 times, but I will still, as my dharma, do this. And well, his ministers are also saying, she's not going to come back, but they escort her all the way. They escort her all the way, and he leaves the guardsmen when she comes back. And again, she goes, she finds her father, puts him on a chandan throne and everything, and pours water on it. As she's pouring water, she puts her big toe on top of his big toe, so that everything gets free of leprosy except the big toe on his foot. And she goes, "Oh, let me get some more water for that." And she basically, and Vasuki doesn't want to let her go, but she goes, and there the warriors are waiting. She says that, take me to your king, and the whole marriage mandap is all set up and everything. And Parikshit marries Navaldevi, and she becomes the queen of the Pandavas and of Queen of Parikshit. That's the same story we have from this, but now here the story extends. Here in the stories of the tribals, the Mozas, the small Mozas, the story extends further. Vasuki is not happy about it. He has fulfilled his oath. His daughter is married to Parikshit, but he is angry. That anger, that uh, original angst he had against Pandavas, he cannot let it go. And this is where all the stories are about. That somebody doesn't let go of the ego. He opens all the swords and takes them out of the scabbard and throws them onto the floor and says that Jo bhi beeda uthayega, the one who picks up the sword, he has to kill Parikshit and come back. And so one of the Nagas, Chimba Nag, he takes in, and Chimba Nag basically takes the Bira, takes the ritual sword, and he goes and, yeah, I'm going to kill Parikshit. Now Parikshit one day is very happy. He's with his wife and he says, I want to go hunting today. Somehow I feel like hunting. And she says, don't go. I got portents. I'm feeling that my left eye is going right, left. And so don't go now. But he still decides to go. And there he sees there's a black buck. And somehow, he has been protecting the black bucks, you see. So he now makes a mistake himself. He shoots the black buck. And when the black buck dies, 360 does come up and say, he was like, Vasuki had killed so many black bucks, so many bucks. He was the only husband left. We curse you that, like, we are widows, your wife will become a widow. Now he is a little bit upset, Parikshit, about it. He wants some water. He asks the falcon, is there some water nearby? She doesn't find it, but he has a cup. And Parikshit is son of Abhimanyu, grandson of Arjun, great grandson of Indra. So he calls his great grandfather and says, send me some water. So he sends a little cloud. The cloud comes and fills up his water. And Parikshit waits while he's waiting for that water to fill up, while the cloud to come and fill up. He sort of dozes off. So the Chimba Nag is hiding in the tree and he looks at it and he puts some poison in that water. Fun. Now, obviously the falcon sees it. And when Parikshit gets up and he sees the water is there and he's about to drink it, the falcon attacks the water and gets it thrown down. He's angry at Falcon. What is this? I'm dying of thirst and you are attacking me. And he sort of hits back without realizing he has a sword in the hand, and he hurts the Falcon and Falcon dies. Now he's further upset. But then 3 manas sitting in the tree tell him that, there's a snake hiding in the tree, and he kills the snake. But as the snake falls, Chimbanag, his head bites his big toe, and Parikshit also dies. Now the soldiers who are with Parikshit, they go running back to Queen Mother, Veranti. Uttara is daughter of Virat, the king Virat. She's called Verati. In Punjabi, she's also called Basanti. So, and tells them that your son is dead. And she's crying and she curses her daughter-in-law like all mother-in-laws do. The daughter-in-law, Navaldevi, she goes out and she finds it. She sees the 4 dead bodies, the black buck, her husband, the falcon, and the snake. So she worships the god. She worships Ram. And this is very interesting here. So we are told that Ram basically gives her the power to restore life. And so she first restores in the order opposite order to which they died. So first she restores Black Buck to life, then she restores the falcon to life, then she restores Chimba Nag and says, "You go away, you don't come back." And the same thing, then she restores her husband. And now Chimba Nag comes back and says, sorry, buddy, I can't do it, to Vasuki. Vasuki sends her sons. They kill Parikshit again. This Naval Dai saves them, beats her brothers. When they were after killing Parikshit, they were just running away. They decide to stop for a meal, and she catches them and she beats them up and tells them never to come back. And so on and so forth. So many people try and kill him, and eventually, one person. So she builds this huge glass tower, as we are told in Mahabharata and Adi Parv, that a palace is built for Parikshit to keep him safe. And so she builds this, gets this great tower built, digs a ditch around it, fills it with salt, needles, water, and Parikshit is safe, but somehow another snake comes in and kills him. Now that snake has the most power, Jivan Nag. So again, this higher and higher snakes, and all of these snakes come in other stories which Temple has collected also. So the story of Naga. So now she cannot save him. So she calls Dhanvantri. And Dhanvantri comes from Mount Abu. And so Dhanvantri comes from Arbud, and restores Parikshit uh, is basically given the last rites. And then Dhanvantri comes, collects the Asthi Kalash and everything, and then revives Parikshit back to life. Again, Vasuki fails. So he now has to find a solution. He goes to his nephew, Tatik. Takshak and Astik is one character in this story. And eventually, long story short, Tatik is able to kill Parikshit, and then he's able to again, anticipate the next move. Dhanvantri comes to save him, so he basically, kills Dhanvantri. He actually bites Dhanvantri also. Dhanvantri is dying, so he tells his Shishyas, you go running to and get the Nrit Sanjeevani herb from the mountain. There's this one lamp there which will guide you to the place where it is there, because Hanuman had left that lamp there for future. So, or Jamvant or Sumant or whoever, Sushena, whoever basically, saved Lakshman. So they go there, but, Tatik or Astik, he basically knows that what they're going to do, and he lights a lot of lamps all over the place. And so now they don't identify the Miss Sanjeevani. So Dhanvantri says, don't worry, when I die, you cook me and eat me. You all will become Dhanvantri. And this is sort of some ritual or something which is not lost in time. So now Astik goes and he tells the local villagers, local people, there are some Narbhakshis, there are some cannibals who are eating, they killed somebody and now they're eating them. So, the local people, they rise up, they drive away the servants, the disciples and everybody. And so Parikshit dies, Dhanvantri dies, and Astik has solved the situation. And 4 months after the death of Parikshit, Janmejay is born. And he then sets out as his life's mission to take revenge. So this whole story now becomes, it's definitely not a foreign invasion. It's basically a fight between a father-in-law and a son-in-law. It's a fight between two clans who had some disagreement in the past, which we are not told about in the story. So that's the very interesting part of this collection. This is the story of Vasuki and Parikshit. And the funny part is, and this was basically around 1900, he published the last of these stories. And uh, so Temple, when he collected these legends, he identified folk tales about certain kings. And he identified these are, and as Nagaraj Garu said, Nal Damayanti is a folk hero in the south. In north also, he identified folk tales, which he said are the folk tales of Nal and Damayanti from Mahabharata. And he identified that there are a lot of stories about Raja Gopichand across the area he was basically stationed in. And these are the stories really of Bhrathari, brother to Vikramaditya. He identified the stories of Raja Risalu. Now, Raja Risalu uh, story has events. I have identified in Harivansh Puran that he is the North Panchal king Dhumuk. Bhisham tells that story. And the other stories of Raja Rislu, he goes with his companions. They are hiding. They go somewhere, and they are given shelter by an old woman. And he eats and he burns his hand. And she says, "Ah, you idiot! You should eat on the sides before going into the center of the plate." So you know your story of which is the story of the formation of Bangalore also. So you know that story is there. Then this old lady tells that the village is actually ruled by a Rakshas who every family has to give food, a bal, a goat, an ox and goat, and a bullock cart driver, and he eats them all. And of course, everybody knows this is the story of Bakasura. So Raja Risalu defeats and kills them. There's a and he's also called the son of Shalivan. And now there is a series of ancient Indian kings, warriors, whose legends and stories we do not know anymore. And Temple finally managed to catch those. And when Persia fell in 642 AD, Parsis came over to India. The Arabs next attacked India. In the westernmost, there was a small kingdom called Zabul, and the Rajputs at Zabul from 642 AD to 836 AD for 194 years, 77 invasions. They basically stopped the Arab armies from coming in. We do not know much about the people who were there in that. We know the stories that they stopped 77 invasions because it's the Arabs who tell us that story. Then, when Zabul finally fell, there was a kingdom of Kabul. And there also the Bhatti Rajputs held from another 126 years. 320 years they stopped it. And Raja Risalu, though he's called the son of Shalivan in the Punjab legends, he is probably a pastiche for the great warriors who fought there. The another person basically is the stories he collects, the temple collected in Wide Awake Tales is Goga Chauhan, Goga Bapa. He was a great Chauhan warrior or or a person who is a generational warrior who stopped these Arab invasions for centuries. And Goga Bapa is also known for his sacrifice fighting against Mahmud of Ghazni. He appears in the Somnath stories written by K.M. Munshi and Acharya Jaitur Sen. So, and some of the other stories are the stories of these warriors, and some of the stories are borrowed from Ramayana, Mahabharata, and other places. So there's a story in which Goga Bapa and some of his companions, they are basically going on some sort of an expedition, and ogress Jal Jogini. It's a gender reverse. So basically, it's the every night she comes, asks questions, and she kills one of the companions. So, and our hero finally answers the questions and impresses her so much that she says, "Okay, you can let one more of your companion be alive." And he gives an answer, and she's so happy she gives everybody alive. So this is a story of Yaksh Prashan, told through a story of this. So you find these stories in temples, legends, and this is where I'm saying that we have not. This is my request to the Indic population, Indic writers, and everything, that let us identify, read up, and extract these folk tales which are still preserved. And Temple didn't was not able to write all of his stories. He just did 59 of them. But this is the very important part we need to work on. Temple had written when he had published the 59 stories that he doesn't have time anymore. He had a lot of other responsibilities, a day job, and all that. And so, if others can take up that burden, and that's where I'm asking the modern Indic writers and people who are listening in, that this is a very important source to read up and extract the stories and tell them again, and again share the story of our brilliant warriors who defended India for 300 years, and the stories of Ramayana and Mahabharata as envisaged from subaltern, from out of the mainstream cultures. The As we just discussed the story of the Bhasa's place. Thank you very much for listening in.
Thank you, Pranshu Ji. It was really amazing to know that all these very intricate and not so popular among the general public kind of characters are very much popular among the Bhil legends and stories, uh, and these stories have so many intricate details. You have such a deep study of all such intricate details, and your repertoire is so rich. You come up with so many different stories from all over the places. Let us check if there are questions. There is Lalita ji who is saying fascinating. Shweta ji, yeah, go ahead.
It was great intellectual depth, Pranshiji, and the storytelling was incredible listening to all the stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm telling you, I just actually, close them a lot more. Like, they are like in so much more detail, like every scene, every movement, and has something, and there are so many ornaments, people, side characters, and side stories, all like, woven in together. And it's very interesting to read them and then identify that, oh, this is, from here he has taken it. This is the story of Potiphar's wife from the Greek legends. Like, as Reverend Bhil identified, like, Ali Baba and the Khulja Sim Sim, the cave is actually a story from Jatakas. So, all of this, the Saint George killing the dragon, the story of Buddha killing Mara, or a Bodhisattva, or another. So that's where all these, stories come in, and he collected from all over. And there are some madcap versions of these stories. Like, he has a story in which Goga Bapa is fighting Firoz Shah Tughlaq. They are definitely not in the same time frame. And Firoz Shah Tughlaq has like characters from all over India's history. He has Daud Khan Panni on his side, Aurangzeb's general. He has Sher Shah Suri's grandson, Adil Shah, on his side. Hemu is on his side. And on the side of Goga Bapa, he has Jai Singh, Jantar Mantar. And he has like all these characters. Arjun is there, so it's so many madcap stories. And this is where the ideas is that, they are listening to these people, and these people who are telling him the stories, they are wandering around and they are listening to other people, and they are just mashing these stories up. And some of these are very, very interesting to understand from the point of view of, and it also celebrates some of these, like Jamal Patta, the stories of, the valor, like, that in average Indian, in Jamal Patta were in Rajputana, but in UP, in Khyber Pass, people were celebrating Jamal and Patta for fighting Akbar. So these stories were part of this. There are stories like Jaising made moon because he's known for his astronomy. So Damayanti is saying, let's how to find Null. So there's a Null Damayanti story in which Damayanti is setting a trap for Null. You know, the Null basically runs through. He is able to run the chariot through in a small time. But when they are setting up traps, they're thinking all things. Can he make a moon like Jaising? See, this is how the modern as well as the it's like that's why I say some of these stories are timeless because they just sit outside time where every character is part of it.
Thank you, Pranshu.